Welcome back to Solar Impulse TV, live from the Mission Control Center in Monaco. Bertrand Piccard and Solar Impulse are in the sky. They took off from Kalaeloa Airport just under 10 hours ago on their way to Moffett Airfield, southeast of San Francisco. And with me, I have the mission director, Raymond Clerc. Now, he's going to tell me we've just passed quite a critical point for Solar Impulse, which is the point of no return. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more about what this means.
Okay, this point of non-return is the point at which we decide to continue towards the West Coast, and we are not able anymore to go back to Hawaii. So now Bertrand is committed to fly for another 2 days.
To flying to Moffett.
Yeah, no chance to reach Hawaii during the next night. The wind, we would have two strong headwinds. So now we fly to the West Coast.
And what goes into that decision? I mean, it's obviously the battery charge, weather, all those different factors.
Well, everything needs to be nominal, and this reminds me 9 months ago when we decided, when we were at the point of non-return out of Japan, that we had this long discussion and even quite fight here in Monaco between different teams to continue or to return to Japan. Now today was easy because the flight goes perfectly well. Bertrand is in good mood, good shape. The aircraft is perfect. And we are at flight level 280. We have full batteries, so no reason to turn back to Hawaii.
Well, and it's interesting to remember what was going on last year, because that, as you say, can be a very tense situation and challenging for everyone to come together. But this flight doesn't necessarily, it may go very completely smoothly, which we hope, but there are challenges ahead probably. So maybe tell me a little bit, are there any points in the flight program that you're, are sort of keeping an eye on?
So now the next point will be for Bertrand to be able to sleep. We see on the images that the sun is already going down, and we hope he will have a smooth flight during the night to be able to rest. And the second day is the most critical day for energy, but we have our reserves and it's looking good.
Great.
But this is the next challenge tomorrow morning, to have at energy neutral morning, to have sufficient energy. And then during the day to be able to work according with some clouds we expect, but I think we'll do it,
And actually, you mentioned energy neutral morning. We've actually gone through energy neutral evening already. Maybe I think it's a good point to explain a little bit about what energy neutral means. Maybe we can. You liked your bathtub analogy. Maybe we can do that today or another time. I don't know.
No. Energy neutral evening is the moment at which the sun is providing sufficient energy to keep the level without
the plane flying level.
The plane without using battery charge. And this is just a moment because the sun continues to go down. So then we will begin to either to use power from the battery, or we will start a smooth descent. And what we do initially is we start a smooth descent. So we keep the power, the batteries to full, and the pilot reduce progressively a little bit the power to the engines, so the aircraft begins his slow descent.
Glide. So this is what we were talking about with Andreas in terms of battery energy, and then you have potential energy, which is actually the altitude, so coming down. So Solar Impulse uses both.
Yes, of course. This is we need to have both energies reserved to survive the night.
To fly day and night.
But the first thing we use is the altitude, and then the power of the batteries at the second part of the night when we are at low altitude.
Lower altitudes. I have to ask, I mean, we're just starting this flight, but we're now committed to Moffett Airfield, and that's going to be great. We're looking forward to arriving at a very historic airbase. But what comes next after that?
Well, 2 days ago, Andre said, I have a question for you guys. And we said, okay, what is the question? And he said, what about a pit stop in Moffett?
I think you have to explain pit stop for people who are
the
not
pit stop
familiar.
is like in Formula One, it's a very short stop. In Formula One, it lasts about 60 seconds, I guess.
Yep.
And here it lasts 6 hours or 8 hours. So the idea would be to land in the evening, change the pilot, and take off the
Take
next
off
morning.
again, yep.
And I think he was not completely joking. He was thinking seriously about it. But of course, for us, we had to say, well, sorry, we need to hire new team members because we are not able to make such a long flight now in shift system and in the same time to prepare the next flight to Phoenix. Okay, the next destination is Phoenix, Arizona. And then he said, what about Monday? And instead of Sunday, okay, what about Monday with a 24 hours stop there? And here also we had to say, wow, it's going to be very difficult. So now we are working on a solution for Tuesday, but for the time being, I don't have a detailed weather analysis. But this will be the next step after the landing. But I would say first we have to keep focused on our flight and to land there safely. But in parallel, we use a little bit of the resources as the flight is going very well to prepare the next leg.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people don't necessarily realize just how much effort has to go into preparing even a short flight. I mean, when you enter the U.S., you start having to think about population on the ground. You have to fly very specific routes. There's air traffic control, weather. It's all these different factors that feed into it.
Yes, sure. The good point is we flew this leg in 2013, so we take it out of the server. And about the route, there is a few changes, but not, the arrival is not the same airport. 2013, we landed in Phoenix Sky Harbor, and this time we'll go to Phoenix Goodyear, which is on the west of the city. But otherwise, the ATC work is quite easy because we hope to have the same routing as 3 years ago.
Excellent. All right. Well, I should let you get back to work. I know you have other things to do. If you are watching, we actually have, it's just a reminder, it's Earth Day here. And at Solar Impulse, we've got quite a variety of interesting interviews. Boyan Slat, who's the founder of Ocean Cleanup. We're going to be speaking to the CEO of Covestro, who's one of our partners, as well as the head of innovation at Solvay. We've got lots of great interviews, as well as other people that are going to be connecting with Bertrand. And the first thing we're going to show you right now is an interview I did earlier this week with Richard Wiese. He was the son of the first person who flew across the Pacific solo. He's an explorer himself, a television host. So stay tuned. And also he's the former president of the Explorers Club. So all very interesting things, and he's got some fun things to say. So enjoy the show. With us today, we have Richard Wiese, explorer and patron of Solar Impulse. Richard, great to have you with us. I actually wanted to maybe start with your father, and maybe you could tell me a little bit about his adventure, since it's very pertinent to what we're about to do later this week, hopefully.
My dad was a Pan Am pilot, and when he first started his career, he was, a little worried about, whether Pan Am would continue. He would continue with the airlines. So he was sort of moonlighting, ferrying airplanes from one location to another. And he had a client that wanted him to fly some planes from Texas to Australia. And, my father did it under an assumed name. And because at the time, Pan Am did not like their pilots moonlighting, doing what would be considered stuntish type activities. So he didn't realize until he had done it that he had been the first person to solo the Pacific Ocean in an airplane. He flew from San Francisco to Brisbane. And I believe, too, that in that time, in 1959, he was the first person to solo from the west coast of the United States to Hawaii. People had done it in the other direction. And so he used to always say that his flight had really been on the cusp of the jet age. It was sort of a handover from props to jets. And so, when I look at the Solar Impulse flights, I really think now this is the next real big handover to the age of technology. I mean, what they're trying to accomplish in terms of theory using the sun, it seems very simple, but the technology's obviously very advanced. And I think that when you start looking at the trickle-down effects of it, if they're able to perfect the solar cells, able to do this, it has a lot of great ramifications for humanity.
One more question on your dad's flight is, how did he prepare it? Sounds like he didn't necessarily even expect to do it.
No, he didn't. And in fact, that I remember he had some survival gear that ended up in a swimming pool years later, life rafts. He had a big coffee can in which he peed in, and he brought some sandwiches and an apple. And in 1959 was really the first satellite images of the Pacific Ocean. And, my father's of a different era. You just did things and you got on with your life. And, growing up, I knew of his accomplishment. He never really brought it up. And there's something very refreshing about that.
And actually, I think you've done in your work some documentary films, if I understand, about Neil Armstrong and some of those great. Am I correct in thinking that?
When I was president of the Explorers Club, in addition to meeting Bertrand, I did meet Neil Armstrong and Sir Edmund Hillary, some of the other great explorers. So, I've gotten to be a little bit of a fly on the wall of greatness, of seeing these people. And it's interesting how each person handles their fame. For example, Sir Edmund Hillary was a very outgoing guy, very humble. Neil Armstrong was a very reticent guy, very almost uncomfortable to speak with. I've noticed that mountaineers are wired a little different than astronauts. And when you go through places like the Explorers Club, you get to witness a lot of these things. But Bertrand's interesting, too, because, he's got just such an outgoing, warm personality that he makes science and engineering seem, something natural and fun and something that you should be doing.
So you were talking when we first started speaking about exploration. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, exploration of the past used to be something where, you were going to a pole or you were trying to climb the highest mountain. And how do you see exploration changing in the modern time? I mean, Solar Impulse is exploration, but with a broader purpose. I mean, do you think that's unique to this project, or do you think it's sort of how exploration is going?
Well, I think there is a main ingredient in exploration, that's curiosity. And I think that explorers are storytellers too. And I think that tradition continues. There's always been one guy who said, "You'll never guess what I saw or what's on the other side of that lake." So I think that whole idea of curiosity remains, and it probably hasn't changed very much. I think where exploration has changed from what I've seen of members of the Explorers Club, the Explorers Club often says that it has members who are the first to the North Pole, South Pole, to the deepest point in the ocean, which is Bertrand's father, and also first to the moon. And a lot of the early explorations were about Herculean tasks, people overcoming, very strong physical odds. Whereas I think now it's, because of the distances we're going inward and outward, that it's become a little bit of a technology change. So it's very hard to be a face of exploration anymore. I think it's more mission driven than individual driven.
Well, how important, I mean, as you said, you've met some incredible explorers in various different fields. How does the skill of teamwork feed into creating a great explorer?
I think that often, an individual is celebrated, but behind every great accomplishment is a team or a body of work, and building on the work of other people. So I think that, while it's nice to have singular moments or genius, a group of people working with determination and, towards a similar goal in a positive way can accomplish a lot. And I think that, again, the Solar Impulse team just encapsulates so many great, wonderful things in humanity, exploration. I think that the more people see their example of taking difficult situations, looking at it objectively, and saying that we can overcome certain obstacles, is just a treasure. I think that these guys are a world heritage treasure in and of themselves.
Thank you for your time, Richard. It's been great having you with us. Stay tuned as the adventure continues. Richard Wies there, the former president of the Explorers Club, the youngest president of the Explorers Club, actually, and also a patron of Solar Impulse. And I just love that image of his father flying across the moonlighting as he was flying across the Pacific for the first time, for the first ever solo flight. That's it from me at Solar Impulse TV. We will be back again with an interview from Altron, from one of our simulation experts. That will be at 10 a.m. local, so that, let me go back, that's 8 a.m. UTC. Thank you very much for your time. See you soon.
We'll write another one for the Atlantic for the ones who do.